Hello and welcome to The Hearing, our music review show here on the channel. I'm John.
And I'm Scotto.
And without any further ado, on to this week's movie, which is from 2017, Everything Now by Arcade Fire. I now know what you mean by it's the controversial pick. We'll get to that. Arcade Fire is a Canadian indie rock band that was founded by Win Butler and Josh Dew in Montreal around 2001. The band has been described as indie rock, art rock, dance rock, and baroque pop. They play guitar, drums, bass guitar, piano, violin, viola, cello, double bass, xylophone, glockenspiel, keyboard, synthesizer, French horn, accordion, harp, mandolin, and hurdy-gurdy. And yes, I had to list all of them. And take most of these instruments on tour. Both the instrumentalists in the band switch duties between throughout the show. So they all play various instruments throughout the show. All of these bands' studio albums have received nominations for Best Alternative Music Album at the Grammys. Everything Now is the band's 5th studio album. It was released on July 28th, 2017, physically through Sonovox Records and digitally through Columbia Records. The album was produced by Arcade Fire alongside Thomas Bangalter of the electronic house duo Daft Punk and Pulp bassist Stephen Mackey, and features, I think I've got this, but apologies, Regine Chassagne on vocals, piano, keyboards, and guitar. I don't know why they had to throw in guitar.
It's also their first...
Well, let me finish the rundown.
Okay.
Richard Reed Parry on electric guitar, bass guitar, and backing vocals. Win Butler on vocals, bass guitar, and electric guitar. Tim Kingsbury on acoustic guitar, electric guitar, bass guitar, and backing vocals. Will Butler on keyboards, bass guitar, and backing vocals. A lot of them play bass. And Jeremy Gara on drums, and too many additional musicians to list here. Check Wikipedia.
This is also their first single album since 2007's Neon Bible.
So they do double albums?
They did 2 double albums back to back.
Oh, okay.
And so this is their so yeah, out of the 5 albums, I think you said?
This is the 5th.
Yeah, so
2 of them were doubles. Yeah, wow.
2 of them were doubles. This is their first single one in like 10 years.
Wow. Reminder, I don't edit any songs into the episodes for copyright reasons, but down in the description you'll find links to find Everything Now on Spotify and YouTube so you can listen along. On to the very interesting track 1, entitled Everything Now Continued.
Yeah, usually they don't get cute with their titles either, but this album they did. It's not like the Flaming Lips, where the Flaming Lips get like all cutesy with with their titles. Usually they're very straightforward, you know. But yeah, this one they...
And the last track is a continuation of this track, or vice versa. I'm not sure exactly how that works. But they have really nothing to do other than titles and phrase with the song Everything Now. So I don't know how it's a continuation, and I don't know how a continuation can be first.
And musically, the 2 Everything underscore nows.
Yeah.
And Everything Now.
It's Everything underscore this in the last track. The second track is Everything Now without the underscore.
Oh, okay, you're right. And then the Everything Now without an underscore.
Very different song.
And well, I mean, you don't get how they connect until you get to the second to the last song, "We Don't Deserve Love," like where it kind of swings into this a little bit musically. Then you kind of see how they all fit together.
Well, sonically, they're all connected
by the time you get to that.
But this one starts mid-sample, kind of like...
Right. This one, they throw you in the middle. It's like the wall.
Or kind of like mid-sample, kind of like the first song on Seeds, the TV and the radio album that we reviewed. Yeah. It just starts kind of abruptly in the middle of the sample. And I'd love to know what the sample is, because it's probably just some bit of Mellotron that they cut in a very interesting spot. Nice ethereal vocal, some interesting atonal synth intrusions, as I'm calling them. They come in between the lines and just punctuate them with this nice atonal.
Right, there's just this line about something about being in the black again. So yeah, on your first listen, you're just kind of like, wait, what? Oh, okay. And then this cacophony,
And then it just descends into this chaos. One of my favorite songs in the album. And that chaos kind of I can't say devolves, but kind of resolves with a voice saying everything now right at the actual, at least on Spotify, at the actual beginning of track two, everything
Yeah,
now.
yeah. Just you just hear somebody just saying now.
Or it's actually, she says everything now. She says
Oh
the
yeah,
full title. Because I listened to that a few times because I really like that, especially since, and this is probably a weird Spotify bug, but it was right at the beginning of the second song.
yeah. I think I'm assuming they flow into each other because
Mhm.
it's just. I mean, that's how this album
But
is.
yeah, so it's that last split second before the next track starts. This song, track two, everything now without the underscore,
Just
contains
everything.
elements of the Coffee Cola song, written by Francis Beebe. Um,
Coffee cola song, huh?
don't know.
So
Um,
yeah, you got
and
this ABBA style
this is
keyboard,
very different because that first song is basically kind of like a nice mellow electronica sort of thing, very ethereal and spacey.
and
This
when I
is
started listening to this, all I kept thinking of was like, if the last thing John heard from them was about like something from Funeral or
it was kind
the
of
early
folky. There was,
stuff,
I think, there was banjo.
this is going to be quite a shock.
Yeah, it was.
A rude awakening.
Well, the underscore song was everything now was kind of a shock, but it was okay. This is a nice mellow kind of spacey synth, electronic thing, and I like it. And then it goes disco
Yes.
and Bowie disco because the vocal was very Bowie.
Oh yeah, yeah. They
Um,
started.
Win
In fact,
Butler, I think, was very influenced by Bowie.
they even had Bowie as like a guest backing vocal
Oh, okay.
on the last album,
Hmm.
which it was. I think that was 13, so it was a couple of years
Yeah,
before he
yeah.
passed.
Um, and I really wasn't sure what to make of the disco angle, to be honest.
It's
And
very. It's it's very deceptive though.
well, it's I don't know what to think of the song, to be honest. I did like the lines, every inch of every inch of sky has a star, every inch of skin has a scar.
Yes,
I love
that is
that
a
line.
beautiful line, and I mean, but it's kind of. I don't know if they're using the disco as a distraction, if they're using it to hammer the point home, or uh, if they're just using it to contrast the subject matter that they're talking about.
I think the third one may be a possibility. That Cure do that fairly often. I just think it was, a chord progression or a melody that somebody thought sounded, that string riff in there that somebody thought sounded good, and they just chased it down, and it turned into a disco song, and then they decided to put these kind of depressing lyrics on it.
I,
Um, I will.
I would think that too, but just the way this whole album is put together and how precise they are
Fair
with
point. Fair
telling
point.
their
Yeah,
story.
there's
They're
definitely a method to this album that I'm not
right.
really sure I understand yet. I will say, just over a minute in, I got very tired of the every this, every that format. I'm glad that they did break it up a little toward the end of the song.
Well, and then notice when they get to the end of the song, it feels so aggressive, like the everything
Mhm.
now,
Oh
but
yeah,
then
he's
that
practically
chant,
screaming.
right? I mean, it's like it's fine in the beginning, and then by the end, it is like they are bludgeoning you with
Yeah,
it,
yeah. And
and
that's really where he reminded me of Bowie, was the end where he gets really intense.
right, and eh, you know, it's just about the themes of this album. That we're drowning in information, distractions, pop culture,
Mhm.
um, and it just leads to pretty much just abandonment, isolation, people faking even their own personas, um, and just
But
destroying
and
relationships.
then I'll get more into this, on track four, but I kind of didn't get a sense of authenticity from the lyrics because they were kind of felt like they were written from outside.
Huh, well,
They didn't really sell them to me. But
I mean,
I'll get to more of that in four, of course.
it is demonstrating like it's almost like an apocalypse. It as it's happening, sort of thing.
Mhm.
Like
Mm.
you're singing this from the very top deck of the Titanic as it's all going down. I mean, the stuff like the leaving your car in the middle of the road sort
Yeah.
of thing. Just like,
Yeah.
I
Anyway,
mean, when they did the suburbs, it was very on the nose and everything. The music went with each mood and everything. There's this lonely piano and stuff. And then here they're completely contrasting what they're talking about.
Huh, which gives me something to think about as we continue. Speaking of which, on to track 3, Signs of Life. This is not a Pink Floyd cover. And the opening violin, or maybe possibly a viola, maybe a cello. No, I don't think it's a cello. It's either a violin or viola. It's the beginning of Smoke on the Water.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's the first 3 notes of Smoke on the Water. I did catch that.
Yeah.
And this is very very different instrumentation. That
It's
was
very Isaac Hayes.
the last one was very classic.
I wouldn't have picked up on had we not been doing Shaft in the same week.
Good point. It was the last one was very classic piano and strings disco woodwinds, you know.
Yeah.
This is a lot more horns. It kind of sounds like what a lot of 70s rock bands did when they tried to go disco. Like the Stones with Miss You, or what was the Kiss song where they tried to go disco?
Oh, I forget.
I Was Made for Loving You, I think, was their disco lean in. It sounds like a rock band leaning into disco for money. And it's probably my weakest so far. Or weakest of the album. I so far, because there was only 3 tracks, but it's the weakest of the album to me.
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting because they're the context is really. I mean, if you're listening to it for the first time, you're like, "What are they talking about?" I mean, is it just like looking for a hookup sort of thing? And you kind of get from the next track that it's more about. It's also about looking for a person's vital signs.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But the double meaning doesn't become clear until you
right.
get to the next song, which lays out the concept of the album.
On to that one, track 4, Creature Comfort. This one I liked musically, particularly the opening synth riff. This is very sort of
9 Inch Nails, you know,
very late 80s, early 90s, that kind of middle ground between synth pop and early industrial.
Yeah, the hook is very new wave. The melody, you know, listening to it correctly, a lot of this album, I'm just thinking more Pink Floyd actually than anything else. Like this one, you know, is very similar to something off of a song from Obscured by Clouds. And of course, yes, Signs of Life was the name of a Pink Floyd song. It was like an intro, though.
I have an opportunity for a running gag this week. I'm going to take it. And this one, musically, I liked it. But lyrically, and it's about looking for comfort, creature comfort, in things outside of yourself. And it just seemed to be written from an outside kind of judgmental perspective, which to me lacked emotional weight.
They lay the concept of the album out here. It's, you know, again, we're being drowned out. And of course they do this repetition where you just kind of feel like you're falling into it. You know, on and on, you know, I don't know what I want. It's not just that we're looking for creature comforts, it's that we're being kind of bludgeoned by them more than anything else. When they get into the suicide, I mean, it's the key to it is the key to the album, because then you put like a lot of stuff in different contexts about life and death.
And that's why that was what distracted from me, because he's talking about suicide, but it's in a very detached kind of external way.
Well, yeah, she was a friend of mine is all he pretty much says.
And that kind of, they lacked weight. If you go into that territory, it's got to have some emotional punch. And this song just didn't have it for me. At least
I don't know what they're looking for where it comes to emotional reaction. I mean, I think they're looking to make you think more than to feel, you know?
On to track 5, Peter Pan. Now they go into reggae territory.
And they do that. They were experimenting with different cultural sounds a lot in Reflector. And
the horns are nicely arranged. Those are literally my only notes on the song.
It's really an odd one. It's a very loud synth bass. I think they're implying also that his friend didn't make it. And really, it's him pleading for her life in this. You know, come with me. You know, we might not live forever, but there's still more life to live.
Uh-huh.
And then there's this silly synth voice in there too. And then, of course, the creepiest line, of course, is here's a little something to thin the blood, which is, of course, if you're putting a context of filling up a bathtub,
Mm-hmm.
you're most likely slicing your
Yes.
wrists.
Thinning the blood to bleed out faster. Yes.
Yeah.
And there was a mismatch. There was that there was that distance from the subject matter, which kind of killed it for me again.
And it's a lot of people have cited this song as the one they hate the most.
Probably a second for me because I have so few notes on it.
It's I don't know what to make of it either way. Honestly, it's a very strange song, and I'm sure there's even more that will come out.
Yeah. On to track 6, Chemistry, and this is not a Rush cover.
Yeah, I would say either this one or I've been back and forth between this one and Creature Comforts as my favorites off this.
Another reggae attempt. The horns on the chorus remind me a lot of The Police around like Ghost in the Machine era. Like the loud guitars coming in on a couple of the choruses. It was a really nice contrast.
They do this, samba sort of Brazilian sort of thing. I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't say reggae. It is kind of
It leans into reggae again. It varies. I think the verses lean into reggae. The choruses go a little.
And then in the middle of the chorus, they just pull off this Brian May style like riff. You're just like, wait, what?
It's just out of nowhere. It's very brief. And I'm kind of like, wait, come back. And then we get to that part, that repeat of that part, and it comes back. So I was happy. It just was this really nice bit of contrast, which is something the album was lacking up until now.
So at first I thought, does this really fit with the concept entirely? But the more I thought about it, I mean, the concept is also about relationships.
Yeah.
And this is from the dude's point of view, the alpha dude.
Right.
He's going to take this woman home, she's got two choices, she's going to come with me or I'm going with you sort of thing.
Right.
And yeah.
And now on to the most interesting part of the album. I'm going to group these together.
This is pretty cool what they did here.
Track 7 and track 8, one called Infinite Content, the other called Infinite underscore content, or maybe I should call it Infinite Content. Same song,
yes,
repeated.
The two songs are identical.
One's punk, one's country.
Yep.
Loved the juxtaposition of the meanings and pronunciations of content and content.
Right.
The lyrics are infinite content, infinite content. You're infinitely content.
Yeah.
All your content is already sold to you or spent for you. Well, all your money is already spent for you.
Yeah. It's just, it all perfectly fits with the concept of the album.
I really enjoyed the punk version. I was glad it was short because it really couldn't have gone on too long.
Right, of course. I mean, it's like this weird punk with strings and a keyboard. So I don't know if that would make it new wave or not, but it is punk though.
Loved the little guitar riff at the end. And then it comes back around to the country version.
You're just kind of like, what?
I'm not sure if it was brilliant or completely ridiculous. Maybe a combination.
Yeah, I was like, if you haven't realized they're fucking with us by now.
Although weirdly, I didn't like the guitar riff. It's the same riff. It just didn't work for me in the country version.
I mean, you could also look at this as a critique about modern music and just
absolutely,
how fluid the genres really are these days. Like, I keep saying metal is now country music because it's like you have to have this rigid set of rules.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah,
the
audience isn't that far off.
And country is now like pop music.
The Don't Want to Miss a Thing, Aerosmith, or the song from was it Deep Impact or the other one?
I think that was Don't Want to Miss a Thing.
Okay, the one from the
what other asteroid movie it was?
One of the asteroid movies. I think it was the one with Bruce Willis. I don't remember the name, but it was covered. It was written by Diane Warren, performed by both Aerosmith and a country artist.
Yeah,
and there wasn't much of a difference between the two other than the vocal.
No.
So yeah, that's definitely an apt comment on pop music.
Yeah, it's just all about marketing. which is
Mm.
what this album is all about.
Yeah, yeah,
Like they have everything now is like this corporation
yeah.
kind of thing. It's for the gag they've been touring with.
And I'm finally getting everything now. It's you can have everything now, in a consumption sense,
Yeah,
but it's kind of also being overwhelmed with everything now.
right. Right, that's why they're beating you up with the lyrics and the vocals and stuff.
Hmm.
And so now remember we had chemistry before we had this weird experiment with
Right.
infinite content. On the other side now,
Oh, and Infinite Content fittingly ends with supermarket sounds, which I thought was a nice touch.
I
The
cannot
country
figure
version.
out. I've been listening to this now for a year. I cannot figure out what's playing on the music in the background of the store.
I wasn't even paying attention to it. It was just random sounds. Probably another one of their songs that they just arranged for music. They
I
keep
don't
playing enough
know.
instruments to do that.
It's like da 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 da.
Wasn't I paid no attention like real
Well,
music, I paid no attention to it.
well, think about it. They did "Smoke on the Water" with, with
That's
violins.
true. That's
They
true.
probably have fit something famous
Yeah,
in
that's a good
music
point.
for them.
That's a good
That's
point.
exactly what they're talking about in both of these
Hmm.
songs. It's their
On
statement.
on to track 9, Electric Blue, and this is not an Ice House cover.
No.
Last time I'm gonna pull that gag. Last time I can. Gotta pull out the most obscure one. This was really reminiscent of early 80s pop hip hop.
I always say, you've got the roller rink going on here.
Yeah, yeah.
You can see the lights at the roller rink while you're
Mhm.
listening to the song. It is just that vivid.
It's just got this twee high pitched vocal
Right.
with this like early rap pop, hip hop, as I tend to call it, music. And I was just waiting for a rap to come in. It would have been a nice vocal contrast.
But this is the perspective of the woman, the female
Mhm.
perspective of, just completely being bombarded by the dude from chemistry
Uh-huh,
and
right.
society and everything now and it just I don't know what to make of it, honestly. I mean, because it does give you just this feeling of just drowning. Like in that they just use that repetition and it just completely layers on top of layers, and you're just like, Is this gonna end soon?" kind of thing. Is this gonna be us forever now? It's a very odd choice for a single.
Yeah, yeah. I was just amending my notes for later. Yeah, I really don't know what else. I don't. I only listened to it once. Last week was a bit hectic, so
Yeah.
yeah, I only had a chance to get through the album once. So the lyrics, most of the lyrics, just kind of bounced off of me. So I'm kind of just reacting to the music a lot of times. Um, Speaking of interesting music, on to track 10, "Good Goddamn." Love the bass line.
That's a nice funky bass line.
It reminds me of the Clash,
Yeah, I can see that.
combat rock, London Calling era. When they weren't really punk anymore.
I know.
Um, but I liked them.
Punk rock for people that don't like punk.
I liked the Clash. So it was kind of interesting with the Clash with a softer vocal and some keyboards.
I mean, nothing says punk like a good, Motown sounding piano and
Yeah, exactly. But this one, but good goddamn. But that with soft vocals and keys, also has a slight disco feel. Probably some nice subtlety in the drums that I can't quite put my finger on.
yeah, this guitar riff sounds so familiar.
It's real
I just
close to London Calling.
I can't put my finger on where I've heard it before. It sounds very Mike Rutherford. That
That's
that
true.
just
Yeah, yeah.
that little picking,
Oh yeah,
there,
that part. That part.
there, there.
Yeah, yeah. On to track 11, "Put Your Money on Me." Earlier tonight before we recorded, I saw you on Spotify that you would listen to this on Spotify, and I totally forgot that there was a song on the album with this title. I had to go back and look, and that was what got me to like re-listen and go through my notes of it.
And this
But
was another odd choice for a single.
there's this repetitive synth bass riff that just
Hmm.
kind of gets annoying. It gets that repetitive. And then
Yeah.
kind of disco-y thing. There was a nice kind of classic sounding, kind of beefy sounding synth on the right side. I dug that.
So it starts out with this basic, synth pattern, and of course it's just the face value of the lyrics is the man trying to win a significant other back, but you put it in context, it's again the man pleading for this person's life,
Yeah, yeah.
that putting your money on me is,
Yeah.
you could still live.
Which goes back to track 2 or 3.
Right. Like, I know it's not easy, which is of course repeated throughout the song, is, it is life.
I
And
am
then,
completely turning around on this album just on the concept
well, right, the concept that
because
is
I'm kind of seeing the first two Everything Nows as the overture.
right. It's a very challenging album. So it's very deceptive that they put this bubblegum sound to a lot of it, and then you're just kind of like,
Because the concept went completely over my head when I listened to it. Maybe because I only did it once.
and right, and of course that this leads into this is really
Yeah.
just an intro to
And just
into
a couple of quick notes. It's really repetitive, except for a nice little break in the bridge, which is very short, and this weird little slow part. Talking about "Put Your Money on Me," where it gets
yeah,
where about a minute and a half before the end of the song, it just slows down briefly and
yeah.
then picks back up.
And he says something crazy like Silicon Valley. It goes back to the Silicon. We can still like do this or whatever. I mean, you're just kind of like, wait, that's a really weird thing to say.
Mhm.
But it's kind of under a bunch of things, so you can't
Mhm.
even like make it out until you've listened to it a
Yeah, yeah,
number of
couple times. Yeah.
times.
On to track 12, "We Don't Deserve Love."
The climax of
Uh-huh.
the album, actually.
Yeah. Really like the groove. Another one of my favorites. Another great kind of beepy sounding synth part. Um,
It's of course the bleakest and most desolate
and
statement of it all.
this is the ice part. I jumped right there. Saw a bug out of the corner of my eye. This is the only song on the album that really sounds genuine and original to me.
Huh.
Everything else is kind of a style pastiche.
Yeah.
This is the only one that really sounds original to me. I loved the kind of weird sliding synths.
Yeah. It did. And it really does just make you feel like you are in this darkness
Yeah,
and
yeah.
in the middle of nowhere. You can just, yeah, I mean, you can really just see it. Like, it really does paint the picture.
Mhm.
Uh, it's a
The
bad
cool,
relationship. The guy still really wants to get back to her, and he's but they're still using all of these distractions
yeah.
and things to,
Mhm.
in their lives.
Yeah. And the chorus gets a little less interesting. It's a little poppy, which is an
Yeah.
interesting contrast from this really kind of surreal, dark verses. And this one also gets very Bowie vocally.
Yeah, this is probably, I mean, one of the most Bowie songs on the album. It's revealed she has had self-destructive habits herself,
Mhm.
and like repeated abandonments, which lead to like a Christ complex sort of deal. I mean, he points out that every man will abandon you. Even Jesus abandoned Mary.
Wow.
That's the whole
Uh-huh.
roll away the stone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's gone.
Huh.
I mean, Reflector was, of course, like all about, how religion is bogus,
Mhm.
sort of the whole album.
And I'm getting, and this is actually, I'm sure this is an analogy that or a comparison that's been drawn before, but I'm getting a bit of a Talking Heads feel too.
that was like all the earlier stuff sounds a lot like
Well,
Talking
not
Heads.
necessarily in musically,
Yeah.
but in the sense that Byrne can write about some really dark stuff in a very detached,
In fact, I think they even did something with
self,
Burn
kind of
early on.
self-aware way, and which is kind of what they're doing here.
Like there's a lot of stuff in the early days where it was just like they were really just going for Talking Heads, and he was
Uh-huh.
really singing in Byrne's style, and
Oh, okay.
it took him. I think it took like a couple albums to find their voice,
Mhm.
and you know,
Mhm.
after all that bleakness, it leads into
On to track 13, Everything Now Continued, and this is Everything No underscore now.
right. Oh yeah, 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 right, right.
This is
I,
continued.
it kind you're not thinking about the intro when you're
Mhm.
listening to "We Don't Deserve
Right,
Love,"
right.
but then you realize, wait a minute. When they bring this back, you're like, oh, wait a minute. That last song really does lead into this
Yeah.
song, and then
And
of
this is
course,
a longer version of the first track,
yeah,
with two verses instead of one that you hear in the first song. The first verse is the same. For that first verse, it is identical. It's an
yeah,
identical song. That beginning is the first track is a snippet of this song with chaos at the end.
right, and that black again line now suddenly makes sense. You kind of wonder, most likely that guy did not make it home,
Mhm.
you know. you know, did we survive the bombardment? Maybe he didn't, or maybe he just didn't come home at all.
And I get this as the closer, but I don't quite get it at the beginning.
I mean, we could just pretend we made it home again, or we can't make it back again.
I think at the beginning, the everything now without the underscore works as an overture.
Yeah.
I don't know if they needed everything underscore now continued as the opener when it's just a snippet of this. Just start everything no underscore. Start that with the chaos.
Well, it's just an intro. I mean, it does. I mean, it does lead into everything now, sonically. So the
But
four
they could have just
songs.
started that with chaos.
So the four songs are connected.
Mhm. It just seems like a stunt to me. But I do like the longer version more.
Oh, of course, I love
It,
that flourish at the end. Those
yeah,
keyboards.
and it's got a nice little instrumental break. It's basically those two verses and a long keyboard solo, um, with some fake strings that do sound a bit disco. They kind of layer that through the album.
Yeah, and I think it just talks about how the cycle is always just going to repeat.
Hmm.
That there is no end to this.
Uh-huh. So obviously you picked it. This is
Yeah.
a stupid question at this point,
It,
but
I've put this in my top three albums of last year.
okay, so you definitely recommend it.
Yeah.
I originally didn't. I didn't get the concept. I thought it was just a bunch of stylistic pastiches with a few songs that I kind of liked. But as you've been explaining the concept, it's really fascinating. So
It
I'm ultimately going to recommend it.
it's a tough album, and I wouldn't blame you if you didn't recommend it because there's a lot of people that hate this, even Arcade Fire fans.
If you after multiple listens hadn't explained the concept, I wouldn't have recommended it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of those I think gotta give it a bit of time to really appreciate it.
I mean, I was giving them the benefit of the doubt when I listened to it first, so it's kind of like, this is very, even after Reflector, I thought this was very weird for them.
Mhm.
And then getting like the contrast, it's like they're really talking about this shit with like this ABBA style music going on at the same time. Like, could you imagine like ABBA talking
Yeah,
about
yeah,
like people killing themselves
right.
and
Yeah.
shit in their songs?
They would have been a lot less successful.
Well, right, exactly. And yeah, I mean, it's why this album hasn't been very well.
Which is why I was surprised when I read that all of their albums have been nominated for Grammys. Because I mean, I've been aware of them for several years, but they're not. They never really struck me as a mainstream band.
No, no, they're not. I mean, the, but I mean, they're kind of purposely being obtuse, like in these last few
Mhm.
albums.
And you mentioned the one I heard I'd seen before. I know, like it was one video probably. You said it was probably from Funeral. That's where they went a bit folky.
Oh yeah, well they stuff in Neon Bible where they violins and stuff.
Okay,
They use a
banjo
lot
and
of that.
okay. That's
Yeah.
what I went into this expecting, and I got this
Well, yeah,
disco reggae thing.
it's like this is kind of like if we did your first Talking Heads album as was Naked or Little Creatures.
Right, right,
You're like, wait, what the fuck is this?
right. Good point.
But yeah, I do love when a band is like, you're expecting us to do Funeral Part 3.
Uh-huh.
No, you're not getting Funeral Part 3. You're getting this.
Yeah, if your first Rush album was, Hold Your Fire, yeah, it'd be a bit disappointing or just weird. Even though I do like that album. Anyway, that's it for everything now. Until next time, and we'll be reviewing Phosphorescent Blues by the Punch Brothers. Always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you
There
are.
you are.